ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, good morning. This is Arlene and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery on our ASEAN Daily. This morning we are going to report a breaking news. An Airbus A320 jet which crashed in the French Alps on Tuesday had only just reached a cruising altitude of 38,000 feet before it descended rapidly for 8 minutes, the low-cost carrier Germanwings said. And it plunged for 8 minutes, quite a long time, and the plane, which belongs to Germanwings low-cost airline, was on its way from Barcelona in Spain to the German city of Düsseldorf. French rescue workers have discovered a flight recorder from the Germanwings A320 jetliner which crashed in the French Alps on Tuesday. None of the passenger and crew have survived in the crash in the French Alps. This is confirmed by the local police there. It seems like another devastation involving aviation. Just a couple of months since the last one, which is the QZ 8501, and with what is seeing right now, a lot of people have been responded. In fact, earlier parliamentarian Christophe Castaner, who arrived at the crash site, he told French radio that it wasn't yet clear which of the two black boxes was found, the one on the store, the negotiation of the crew, or the one recorded on the technical parameter of the flight. And there's also quite a few aerial footages of the low-cost airline. It seems the debris has been scattered throughout the French Alps, and in fact the airplane crashed in a very remote area near the town of Barcelonnette, some 100 kilometers north of French Riviera city of Nice. And what has been said by the police chief, David Gautier, he's the province Alpes Côte d'Azur region's police chief. During the press conference, he said that the priority task for the gendarmes who arrived at the crash site was to try to find survivors of plane crash. Unfortunately, as of this moment, we have to state that there have been no survivors in the crash. It's a pretty grim reality that this is happening again. In fact, the CEO of the Germanwings, Thomas Winkelmann, he told journalists that there were no anomalies on the plane. And the fact that the aircraft was 25 years old isn't really an issue as long as you have your maintenance schedule in place and follow all the procedures together with the manufacturer. Meanwhile, the US have ruled out possibility of terrorist attack as the reason for the flight 4U9525 crashing. Bernadette Meehan, White House National Security Council spokeswoman, said that there is no indication of a nexus to terrorism at this time. Instead, he blamed it on bad weather, similar to Rob Thompson, a meteorologist at the University of Reading, that bad weather is the main cause, or the likely main cause, of the crash, as data from lightning detectors show the nearest electrical storms were occurring at Sardinia, some 186 miles or around 300 kilometers off the south coast of France. If a bad weather was the culprit, why fly in the first place? Is there a lot of question and answers, and is there any communication between the signal tower as well as the flight pilots them itself, and why there's just so many flight crashes happening just around these 2 years within? What is the main reason? Could it be because of climate change? Could it be because something the government hasn't really put a lot of focus, government all over the world, as the same as aviation industry, in terms of putting safety as the main priority? So all these questions should be answered soon by those responsible. Second news of today is about Michelle Obama. As we reported earlier, she has been visiting two countries for her Asian trip, which is Cambodia and Japan. And what we found out that after her visits in Cambodia, she actually during her visits in Cambodia, she actually quietly urging better human rights. Michelle Obama urged Cambodian students to finish their education and speak up to demand greater freedoms and more equality on a very landmark visit to Southeast Asia. Cambodia is one of the Southeast Asian countries which are very poor, one of the poorest, and in fact has been ruled by an authoritarian regime for decades. President Hun Sen has been on his seat ruling Cambodia for so many decades that I can't remember the last president from Cambodia. In fact, Michelle Obama did not explicitly criticize Cambodia's human rights record or its government under Prime Minister Hun Sen, but she sent a pointed message, and one that she delivered seated beside Hun Sen's wife, Ban Rani. You are a role model to the world, Mr. Obama said to Ban Rani, seated on a wooden school chair beside the students at Cambodia's First Lady. Education brings empowerment, and urged teens to finish their education and then follow their dreams. Hun Sen is the world's longest serving head of state and has been regularly criticized by political opponents and human rights groups for monopolizing power and brutally crushing dissent. Cambodia's problems with child prostitution, child labor, human trafficking also play a role and often target girls. That's on the girls' side, but on the larger scale, Cambodia have a huge mess in terms of human rights violations. So it's really important for Cambodia to keep its act together, and hopefully in the coming election there will be democracy in Cambodia. We will just see, because with ASEAN coming into one, definitely there's a lot of critical need for countries to adopt a more human rights approach in terms of governance, in terms of even foreign policy. We will take one short break. When we return, we will have news in other countries within Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Well, this is Arlene again, discussing news on Southeast Asia with you all, Southeast Asians. So, continuing from the previous news when I spoke about Cambodia, Michelle Obama's visit to Cambodia, especially on her launching for her Let Girls Learn campaign, where she subtly talked about human rights as one of the key focus for Cambodia, especially to the First Lady. But at the same time, talking about Cambodia is in a race to catch up. This is part of its ASEAN move to integrate. In fact, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, these are countries that are considered countries that are a bit on the not so developed side, and all of them have this preferred statuses to enjoy, where until 2018 they need to catch up with the rest of the region in this Southeast Asian region. In fact, AEC to lower tariff could lead to loss of revenue. Really? How can countries make up for that? Well, but if it increase investment, maybe it's a good thing. So one of the key agenda for ASEAN Economic Community is having lower tariffs. Of course, lower tariff, lower income for the government, but higher income in terms of GDP when the investment could come in. In an effort to bring the free flow of goods and services, investment, capital, labor in the region means a low tariff between 0 to 5% and a potential loss of revenue to, of course, in this case would be Cambodia. This is said by a director of the Asia Pacific Department of the Ministry of Commerce, where he said that the tariff reduction will ultimately not really hurt Cambodia, and I totally agree with it. Maybe Cambodia might lose some tax income, but there will be more investment coming in. It doesn't mean all import taxes are removed. We have our policies. We can impose a local tax. To the Asia Pacific Department of the Ministry of Commerce, he said that that's what he's worried about, that when AEC comes, 10 ASEAN countries will become one. But he's not really sure whether we can compete with others. I think a lot of people within Southeast Asia also have this very ambiguous idea what AEC is all about. It's lots of opportunity, but at the same time, we are really not sure what's the risk and what are the challenges. Siang Sopa, director of the Camp ASEAN Institution and a former youth leader, said that Cambodia's youth see the region as far away, and as a result they lack readiness. And I think it's not just Cambodian youth. I think youth in majority of the Southeast Asian nation, including Malaysia, I'm speaking from experience here, we are not really well equipped and well aware what exactly is as an economic community. We know a bit here and there, lower tariffs, greater access of goods and services, free flow of market and all that, but we are not really sure how are we going to benefit with it, or how are we going to really prepare for it, especially the risks that involve. This include youth must master certain skills, be well prepared with foreign language skills for the capacity to work internationally or regionally. They have to have the ability to use technology. They need the ability for cross-cultural communication with other youth. So you are already seeing this happening among some regional organization, youth leaders, Filipino, Indonesian, Malaysian, Singapore, and the likes have been working together, either in preparation towards the ASEAN Summit or ASEAN Community. But at the same time, I think more efforts from the top and from the ground needs to keep up with the kind of expectation of AEC. Another news about Indonesia. So Indonesia and Japan will be launching high-level forum on maritime security. As we all know, Jokowi had his first high-profile visit to China and Japan. And in Japan, he really want to focus on what Japan can provide to Indonesia, and in this case, definitely on maritime security, considering Japan is also having some form of maritime dispute with China on the eastern side of the seas. Japan and Indonesia agreed to launch a high-level bilateral maritime forum to expand cooperation in ensuring security at sea and to increase Japan's assistance in building Indonesia's port infrastructure and coast guard capabilities. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe And Indonesia's President Joko Widodo welcomed the signing of a defense cooperation pact that involved Japan capacity building assistance for Indonesia's forces. In fact, both leaders, who is also on his, as I mentioned earlier, on Jokowi's first trip to Japan since becoming president last October, also agreed to set up this bilateral initiative to promote trade and investment. That is the hidden agenda, maybe? I'm not sure, but the president called for increased investment from Japanese companies. Japanese companies is one of the major investors in Southeast Asia, just to let you guys know. Indonesia's welcome investment in such fields such as construction of power plant, port facilities, road buildings, and maintenance. So also on highway infrastructure. So most of the investment that President Joko Widodo is looking at is more on the connectivity or in the infrastructure building, especially physical and financial infrastructure. He's not so keen on investment related to primary commodities such as coal and other form of energy a sector. He's more into trying to make Indonesia a better place to do business. This is what I'm seeing it right now. So talking about Joko Widodo, he also pledged to follow on Japan's investors' complaints, to follow up, in fact. What we are seeing now, President Jokowi has committed to Japanese investors in a meeting here yesterday to follow up on their complaints regarding investment problem in Indonesia. I think bureaucracy or red tape is the major problem. Also, the lack of good infrastructure. In fact, Indonesia said that they are already taken actions in response to complaints about infrastructure, land clearance, licensing, fiscal policy, and fuel subsidy. And so far, a lot have been improved. He revealed that fuel subsidy has been removed since the end of last year in order to have better fiscal room. In fact, they will be starting improving infrastructure this year. That's why Jokowi is calling for lots of investment on infrastructure and maintenance of infrastructure. One of the key commitment, especially to improve the economy of Indonesia, is improving the investment climate in the country. When country want to invest in Southeast Asia, usually they would think about Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and that's it. So seldom they think about the potential of Indonesia. So perhaps this could be the kind of future that Jokowi is trying to chart. So talking about Indonesia again, Indonesia will be withdrawing local language plan for foreign workers. Great. So people don't really have to learn Indonesian, but it's not really good for the language, because you want people to be a lingua franca. That means you want people to learn your language as much as possible and speak your language. But for the sake of business, Jokowi is focusing on withdrawing a plan that would force withdrawing a plan that previously is supposed to force foreign workers to take local language proficiency exams after protests from investors. Currently, foreigners do not have to speak Indonesian to receive a work permit for Southeast Asia's largest economy, Indonesia. A second government official confirmed that the plan for language tests would be withdrawn after many complaints, including domestic investors who said that they needed foreign expertise. The planned regulation was well-intentioned to protect low skills jobs ahead of the ASEAN Economic Community integration this year, but should be reviewed because of its potential impact on investment. So it seems like Jokowi is focusing too much on pleasing the investors. I don't think it's a bad thing, because you need the economy to spur the economic growth from an estimated 5.1% to 5.8% this year, relying mainly on higher investment. Well, sometimes you do have to sacrifice your principle, which is to preserve your national language. But you know what you can do is to make sure that your citizen know your language. For foreign, I think to force people to speak the language that is not their first language, it's not easy, and it's really doesn't make sense, especially investors who come and go in a large country like Indonesia. That's all for our second segment of our news, our ASEAN Daily News. But we will continue with countries on Singapore and, of course, Malaysia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. We are back again with news on Southeast Asia, but this time focusing on Malaysia. As we all know, a few days ago, a group of people, especially from Party Socialist Malaysia and a few other from opposition party and of course the general public, they staged an anti-GST protest. And because of that, the rally, which the police said is actually not something that they allowed, have caused people to be captured by the police. And in fact, the police have remanded 29 people in connection with the anti-GST rally at the Federal Customs headquarters. The 29 anti-GST protesters, from what we seem was part of the demonstrators. Among them, Party Socialist Malaysia activists have walked into the customs headquarters in Kelana Jaya at around 11 o'clock in the morning, demanding answers to 106 questions related to GST. They wanted to speak to and hand over a memorandum to the Customs Director General on the tax regime. There remains widespread unease over the goods and tax services, even though it was first announced over a year ago, with just a week left before implementation. In fact, what we can see right now is Petaling Jaya OCPD Assistant Commander Azmi Abu Qasim said the police were investigating the group under Section 353 of the Penal Code for allegedly using criminal force to deter a public servant from discharging his duty. But that's the thing, right? The reality is we have another 5 days more to go for GST to be implemented all over Malaysia. But the thing is, from private companies, small and medium enterprises, grocers, they are still confused. You don't even have to mention the layman's or the general public. I think more information should be given in terms of education and awareness instead of just going ahead 1 year after it has been passed. The reality is the private sector is still clamoring for greater understanding, with those in the small and medium sectors expressing the most concern. One of the major concern that was being added by a few group of people. One of the group of them are the taxi drivers. They were so angry and confused that whether there's a taxi hike or not, but they are just still going through anyway, because you never know. There are 900 items being zero rated or tax exempted, but these 900 items could be more or could be less, and not many people can know what exactly are these 900 items. And that's the problem, when there's just very little education being given on what exactly is GST, how it would impact people's lives. And talking about GST itself, the rally confirmed, however, that the former UiTM activist Khalid Ismath was released after the remand order for him was rejected. And other than that, there are still a few people being held behind bars. Among those being remanded, including Dr. Michael Jayakumar, Sungai Siput MP, Secretary General Aruchevand, and Youth Chief Bawani, and of course past Kuala Karai MP Dr. Hatta Ramli. So seems like this is more than just the protesters who are protesting for the anti-GST rally. I think at the end of the day, there's just very little education and awareness on GST, and a lot of people are angry on the ground for not being given enough time and enough information about it, and they are not even given enough space to add up their concern. And for the government, this could be a very unpopular move, but it might be necessary, it might not be necessary, but at the end of the day, I think there should be greater connection between government and the rakyat, or the people. Talking about greater connection between the rakyat and the people, of course, we are another hot news would be the Hudud law, the Hudud bill in Kelantan that was just being passed. A lot of people are not happy with it, but it kind of split the votes. There are people who actually applauded it. There are people who are not happy with it. And in fact, it's cracking Pakatan itself. According to Mat Sabu, DAP is cutting ties with Hadi based on his impact towards PAS, especially on pushing Hudud. But DAP cannot cut ties with PAS. That's the thing, according to Datuk Sri Hadi Awang Hudud, without affecting the Islamist Party negatively. And DAP Secretary General Lim Guan Eng has told Hadi to leave Pakatan Rakyat if he insisted on tabling the private members' bill needed enforced to Hudud in Kelantan. Lim Guan Eng reaffirmed DAP's commitment to Pakatan Rakyat while maintaining its opposition to the implementation of PAS Hudud. So the problem probably lies with Hadi Hawang, the whole Hudud saga. Maybe if Hadi Hawang is not there, could PAS re-emerge as a different kind of PAS that don't necessarily talk about Hudud, but talk about, I don't know, welfare state. There are just 101 issue that PAS can talk about. In fact, PAS is one of the poorest state in Malaysia. So there's just a lot of work to be done in Kelantan. In fact, the PAS Deputy President urged the leaders of Pakatan to meet and solve the problem plugging the loose position pack. But one thing for sure, if Pakatan is split, it will be not a good thing for PAS, not at all. PAS do not have the majority control in the parliament, and PAS actually rely a lot on its allies in terms of getting votes from places where Malays are not the majority. In fact, even places where Malays are the majority, PAS was having hard time to actually secure it. Case in point would be Terengganu and Kedah. And on another news would be, before we end the show, on the 1MDB probe. So apparently our neighbor Singapore, its central bank of course, is working with Malaysia on the 1MDB probe. Singapore Central Bank said that it was in touch with Malaysia's regulators over the country's investigation on state fund 1MDB. The 1MDB saga will never end, it seems like, after one thing and another. But one thing for sure, the 1MDB redeemed $1.1 billion from Cayman Islands and subsequently parked it into BSI, Bank Limited Singapore, which is a Swiss bank. And 1MDB had just completed a strategic review of its operations. It planned to sell assets and development rights in prime property projects in a move to cut debts. There have been questions over location for more than $1 billion in funds from a failed joint venture between 1MDB and Saudi Arabia for oil and gas and property projects in both countries. No need for Malaysians to worry about the economy as the GDP is growing at 6% while inflation is at 3%. That's what some of the economists are saying, that whatever that is happening in the 1MDB, especially with the debt that it is suffering right now, will not have any effect to Malaysia's economy. Well, we'll just have to see. But in reality, Malaysian economy is doing very well. That's what it seems as well. That's all for our news today. This is Arlene signing off. You can catch up with us by 9 o'clock Malaysian time or GMT +8, where we will discuss on the durian hit, which we discuss critical matters with our guest of the day.